Ba-da-ba-ba-ba, ba-da-ba-ba. All right. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. And Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101.
It's Adam Voith from Billions, and I'm on Promoter 101.
Episode 182 of the Promoter 101 podcast. Joining me now, the world-famous Mr. W. Luke Pierce. Welcome, Luke.
Oh, thank you, Dan. It's really your honor for me to be here today, and I'm glad to do it. We're going to keep things rolling this week with episode 182 of Promoter 101. And Dan, I'm very excited about our featured interview today because it's fellow Nashvilleian. CAA Nashville's Bobby Cory's on this podcast. We're talking Glass Animals. We're talking Harry Styles, Head and Heart, Leon Bridges, one of the biggest up-and-coming agents in this office. Very excited to hear his story today, Dan.
Man, it just seems like the guests keep getting bigger and bigger as we finish this thing up. It's incredible.
It's like we planned it, Dan.
It is like we planned it. Hey, we got a war story with the Tacoma Dome's Tom Alexander, too, so looking forward to that one.
Episode 182 of Promoter 101. Here we go.
My name's Steven Shelton, but you probably know me as Psycho Steve, and I'm on Promoter 101.
Did you know that the podcast is actually coming to an end very soon, Luke?
Is that true, Dan?
It is, but we're going to finish off with a bang. We're coming to AIBA in Nashville for the keynote, and boy, do we ever have some talent lined up for you.
That's going to be taking place on Sunday, October 27th at the JW Marriott Hotel here in Nashville, Tennessee. Be part of the International Entertainment Buyers Association Conference, AIBA for short. And we're looking forward to wrapping this podcast up with so many of our friends and supporters in attendance. It's going to be a very special podcast, and we're making sure that's going to be one of the best interviews we've done yet.
We're looking forward to it. It seems like it's going to be one hell of a week. With the podcast coming to an end, we've done a special commemorative Call Your Mother Promoter 101 t-shirt that we've teamed up with the good folks of the Recording Academy's Music Care Foundation to do a little good. So here's the deal. You, our listeners, if you could go to the Promoter 101 website, click on the merch tab at the very top of the browser and pick out any number of our stylish t-shirts or hoodies and make a donation of $20 for the shirt, $50 for the t-shirt. 100% of the gross goes to Music Cares. It's all in. It's no additional shipping and handling. It's all tax deductible, so you got that going for you. Buy a t-shirt, help some people in need. It's our first ever shirt, and we're so proud. And there's more.
That's right. There is more, Dan, because we have partnered with Prism, who is matching the first $10,000 in donation, Dan. So here's how this works. Go online, promoter101.net, pick yourself up a hoodie. It's $50. Prism will match that. So you've done $100 worth of good by one click right there, Dan. And it's not just for artists, Dan. It's not just for musicians. It is for industry professionals. It's one of the premier organizations providing help and resources to those who really need it the most. So you should check it out. You should learn more. You should go to Music Care's website. And if you want to learn more about it, hit Dan and I up. Hit us up with an email at steiny@promoter101.net, and we will get you some resources about the great work that this is doing. Get yourself a t-shirt, get yourself a hoodie, go do it right now. We'll just stop. We're just going to wait here while you log on to promoter101.net, take out your credit card, your wallet, PayPal, Western Union. We don't care how you get us the money. Send it in. 100% of proceeds are going to Music Cares.
Well, technically 200% of proceeds.
200% of proceeds.
Because of our friends at Prism.
Yes.
200% of proceeds. That's amazing.
That is amazing.
I think even some agents would be proud of us for figuring out how to get 200% of the gross.
Thank you to our friends at Prism for supporting such an amazing cause. And thank you to our listeners who are going to go out there. You're going to stop what you're doing. You're going to go to promoter101.net and get yourself a hoodie.
If you want to send us a note, just simply email us at steiny@promoter101.net. We're happy to respond to you.
Day or night.
If you'd rather follow us on social media, you can connect with us at Twitter at WLukePierce. I'm the Jew, and the show is Promoters 101. That's plural with an S.
That's right. We're also on Instagram. Show's Steiny Promoter 101. I'm at W. Luke Pearson. Dan is at Dan Presents.
Also on Facebook at Promoter 101. We're on Tumblr at Promoter 101. We're on the World Wide Web at Promoter101.com. And you can find us where else now, Luke?
LinkedIn, where all the cool kids are.
Hi, this is Steve Martin, not the actor, not the PR guy, the agent from APA. I'll be on Promoter 101 podcast.
Dan, we got some special edition birthdays for this Labor Day. It's the unofficial end of summer, but that doesn't mean we are not celebrating the rest of this week because there are some birthdays coming up. Who we got on this week, September 3rd to the 9th?
9-3. Chris Prosser of the London Prossers, as well as his twin brother, Gary Prosser, also of the London Prossers. Jackson Herring and Greg Wolf also sharing that lovely Tuesday 9-3 birthday.
On Wednesday the 4th, we're wishing a happy birthday to Vector Management's Ross Schilling, James Rasmussen, Kevin Gasser, and the great Bill Silva.
He is the great Bill
He
Silva.
is the great Bill Silva, the wise and wonderful Bill Silva.
Thursday 9-5, Jason Miller, Amy Dials, and the legendary manager of the stars, Mr. Doc McGee. You know, he's in The Dirt, the movie that Molly Cruz made on Netflix. There's a character that's pretty much a badass. He kind of steals the fucking whole thing.
David Costabile.
From Billions.
Wags from Billions.
Fucking great character, great actor. And Doc McGee is, you know, I think he comes off cooler than any of the guys in Motley Crue in that movie.
It is worth the watch. It's very entertaining. Now, Dan, there are many Jason Millers in this business. Which one are we wishing happy birthday to? Is this Jason C. Miller? Is this Jason...
I don't remember when we wrote it down. So let's wish them both a happy birthday. Fuck it. Great
wish
guys.
them both great guys.
Both great guys.
On Friday, 9-6, wishing a happy birthday to Chad Anderson.
9-7. Rick Bondi of the great legendary Tahoe Agency and road manager of the stars, Scott Cannon.
On Sunday, that's the 8th of September, we're wishing a happy birthday to Tim Sweetwood, Michael Morris, and Dan Smalls, upstate New York. Holla.
9-9, that's Monday, Josh Baker and Denver, Colorado's own Wes Samuel.
Wonderful wishes to everybody celebrating birthdays this week from the gang here at Promoter 101.
Hi, it's Kim Badir with City of Tacoma Venues and Events, appearing on Promoter 101. Glad to represent all Canadians everywhere, particularly those who have landed in the U.S. of A.
Promoter 101 Flashbacks.
Episode 67.
Andy Summers.
Well, I like a lot of kinds of music. I think I understand a lot of kinds of music. I don't like opera. Never liked opera. But I've always liked the more traditional sounding country music or rock bands from 30 years ago that played country music that were more rock bands as opposed to active rock bands singing about beer and things like that, which is what country music is now.
As a career agent, the band that's probably most recognizable tied to your name is Social Distortion, I would think.
Could be, yeah.
Over the last 3 decades, they've worked continually the most.
They have worked continually. They have longevity. They put out very few records. Lead singer's an icon to most people. You know, whatever level they got to in their career, sustained. It just sustains, and it's a good time for people. And people love the band, and I love the band, and it's a good business to be in, and it's especially a good place to be for a music fan like me.
So there's no rhyme or reason to what Andy Summers will sign.
There's a rhyme and a reason, especially now.
But to go from the Monkees to GBH is a hard run. That's a big ballpark you're signing in.
I've always loved Monkees records, and I always loved the TV show, and I loved Michael Nesmith's solo records. After the Monkees ended, those early country rock records. So, you know, when the opportunity for Bruce and I to represent
Bruce Solar.
Yeah. And the first tour we did was just Mickey Dolenz, Peter Talker, and Davy Jones. And it went really, really well. It was an opportunity we jumped on, and it was fun. A lot of big hit songs and really well-written songs. Performed great.
Adam Wilkes with AEG, based in Asia, and I'm on Promoter 101.
We're leading things off on this, the 182nd episode of Promoter 101 with the war story. We're joined now by the Tacoma Dome's Tom Alexander.
Hanging out in the office, Tom Alexander from the Tacoma Dome. You got a war story?
Hello, Dan.
How about that radio voice?
I was out with Nickelback in 2009, 2010, and a lot of bands were having a little trouble in the amphitheaters at that time, and they were selling out everywhere, big business everywhere. So we were in Houston at the Woodlands, totally sold out. The show ends, and I go walking upstairs. The band had just walked upstairs to the dressing rooms, and I just hanging out in the hallway, and all of a sudden I just hear like popping of broken glass and like the sound of unmistakable, like sound like just stuff hitting walls. I'm like, well, that's weird, because everyone's in great spirits. I'm like, this is kind of strange. So I walked down the hall to right outside of, I think it was Chad's dressing room, and there's Chad and I think he's a Hall of Fame pitcher, Roger Clemens from the Astros. And they're literally picking up anything that's not nailed down and having a pitching competition with just bottles to lamps to hit that on the wall or hit that, and just glass exploding left and right. And soon, obviously, there's a ruckus because everyone's like, what is that? And people start running upstairs, and literally certain heads of Live Nation are standing right next to me and tour reps, and everybody's just like, nobody was freaking out. No one was like, everybody stop this. It was like everyone kind of had a ear-to-ear smile, like rock and roll. You know, with the success of that tour, I think everyone's kind of like, hey, let it have. Nobody's getting hurt. This went on for probably 10 more minutes. And like I said, nobody from Live Nation was concerned, or the building. They're like, hey, you know, whatever. It's cool. Great day for everybody. The next day, Roger Clemens came back to the venue himself and wrote a check for like $3,000 and just said, sorry for the mess. And that was just like one of the
what a classy
classiest
thing.
move. Yeah. It's just amazing. So that's one of the war stories.
Awesome. You got another?
I've got a few. Andrea Bocelli, I think it was 1998, his first North American tour of arenas. He was sold out everywhere. Keith Keller and I went to go work on this, and I didn't know who he was before we went out, and I was just dumbfounded the business. So we were in Hartford.
You could do stadiums if you put Bocelli and Nickelback together.
There's something there, yeah. I mean, it's all of them like hit music, so.
Maybe Yanni to open.
Yanni.
You know, you laugh, but Louis thinking about it.
I don't know.
No, he's not.
But coincidentally, actually, it was right before that Bocelli tour, and Keith Keller and I did the Yanni tour. I think with Paul Gongaware and
Megalyn.
No, Megalyn wasn't on board yet. It was just Gongaware, Amy Morrison, Keith, and myself. And anyway, okay, I digress. So second day of the tour, we're in Hartford, and I don't think Andrea Bocelli knew how big he was at the point. Even though the shows were sold out, show ends, we're all backstage just kind of getting our things together, and I see his Italian sound guy, Luciano, come out, and he and Andrea are talking, and then I see them start walking towards the production ramp. And at this time, the show traffic's getting out. It's bonkers outside of the building. And I see them, they keep on walking. I'm like, oh, okay, there's something wrong here. So I'm like, where are you guys going? And they're like, oh, we're going to walk back to the restaurant or the hotel, which is right next to each other. I'm like, it's not a wise thing to do. Tons of people out there. And they're like, oh, like they didn't even think, that didn't even enter their conscience. They're like, well, we still want to walk. And so I'm like, okay, I'm coming with you. So I'm walking with Andrea and his sound guy, literally up the loading ramp. And I grabbed two cops to just flank us. And we get to the top of the ramp. And again, exit traffic, people walking on the sidewalks. He's impossible not to recognize. He's about 6'3", and he looks like Andrea Bocelli. And so everybody's stopped in traffic. We are literally getting mobbed within seconds of stepping on the sidewalk and needing to cross the street to exiting show traffic. People are getting out of their cars. Cops are starting to get freaked out. Like they're almost pissed. So they're like, why are you guys out here? And I'm like, I couldn't stop them. They just wanted to walk back. They wanted to walk to the restaurant. So cross the street, just lots of pushing and shoving, and then make it into this restaurant, walk in, and everybody in this packed restaurant, I don't know if they just came from the show or what, just all stand up at once. And there's like a standing ovation of just us walking into the restaurant. I'm like, this is one of those things that's never going to happen to me again.
The standing ovation. Welcome to IHOP.
But, you know, I think after that time, they're like, okay, maybe we shouldn't be going out in public anymore. Because I think they even got a little wigged out when they saw throngs of people surrounding us. It was very odd.
Thank you so much, Tom.
Thanks for having me.
Tom is an industry vet, and he's exceptional in so many ways. He's got some amazing stories that if you beg him really, really hard and maybe give him a couple drinks, maybe they'll come out, because I know he's got the good stories. But this was a really good one to start with.
Was indeed.
Susan Rosenbluth, Golden Voice, on Promoter 101.
Hey, Dan, it's Monday, so it's time to unveil this week's Promoter 101 Badass of the Week. Who we got?
This week goes out to a great manager, second generation in the game, giving it up for Nick Littman.
That guy just looks like a badass, too. You ever see Nick? He's got this piercing stare, these tattoos, but just the nicest guy in the world. He just
looks like he could have had his own character on Entourage. Like maybe they based like
they might have based the character
on
on Nick in some way, because he definitely has the look of a badass. But more importantly than that, manager to Rob Thomas, Matchbox 20, some of the biggest acts on this planet, and Nick, well deserved.
Good guy to work with. I like Nick, and kind of a mensch.
Hey, this is Brian O'Connell with Live Nation, and we are on Promoter 101.
I'm very excited about our featured interview this week because we're sitting down with CAA's Nashville, Bobby Cory. Bobby works in some of the biggest acts on the planet, from Harry Styles to Leon Bridges to Glass Animals to the Head and the Heart. These are household names, and this is the guy booking the shows for him. Welcome now to the podcast, Bobby Cory.
Hanging out in Nashville, Tennessee, Music City. And I'm at the office of CAA with Bobby Cory. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Your roster is insane. Glass Animals is fucking having a moment that is insane. Him is amazing. Leon Bridges, I don't know how quickly that came out of nowhere, but it clearly ain't getting any smaller. Harry Styles is an icon in that world. And then you've got Head and the Heart, who's one of the most soulful acts that have come out in the last decade. And it just keeps going. Your roster is amazing.
Well, thank you. Lucky enough to get to work with all these artists. I mean, I think that is pretty much what it comes down to. And, really when I look at bands I want to represent, my main focus is who's going to be there for the long haul. And I don't feel that I work with anyone that doesn't want to be in arenas someday. I think you can see that, by the list. So very, very proud to be able to work with them.
When you work with an act like Head and the Heart, who had this amazing start, and they come over from another agency, and they already have reached such a level, is there an amazing amount of pressure to add value to what's already happened to their career?
I mean, I think with, the Head and Heart specific, it was about, really just finding out what they hadn't done and wanted to do different. And then, see if we could kind of make that work. They wanted to branch out, so we put them out with Willie Nelson. They wanted to, package up and go into some bigger outdoor venues. So, we did that with Nathaniel Rateliff, and we kind of, for an off year, just kind of had a really great, cool year of stuff that they hadn't done in the past. And that kind of set us up for what we have now, which is just a full headline tour of all the majors.
It's a very cool thing. You see bands that have an amazing first album like they do and just set the world on fire. And then figuring out how to step up and find cool solutions and new ideas to stay relevant after that, after a success that early on. And they continue to find great packages and great tours and great festival slots. It seems like creatively, it's just a band that really has figured out where they want to go.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the sky's the limit for those guys. They, they're open to playing with Keith Urban. They're open to pretty much doing anything. I mean, they've clearly knocked the alternative market out of the park, and, also reached to that sort of alt country vibe that, works really well here in the Southeast. And, we've made the most of those markets, I think.
So I'm looking around your office, and you've got a picture behind you of Jerry Garcia and framed tickets of the Fare Thee Well shows. And you've got your tour plaque from Harry Styles, who's clearly the biggest pop star in the world, arguably at the moment. And then from Jerry to Harry Styles on one wall. It's like, that's quite a musical span right
Well,
there.
their names rhyme. No, yeah, I mean, I think that, again, it all comes down to talented artists that want to take over the world. I got into the Grateful Dead extremely late, but found that it's just extremely happy music. And at the time, it's what I needed. And I got to say, the Fare Thee Well concerts was quite possibly the best musical experience of my life. And, I'm lucky that I got introduced to the Dead. I've got to give a shout out to my buddy Rich Schaefer and Josh Moore for those introductions.
Jomo.
But yeah, no, I mean, and I think that no matter who it is, again, could be anybody, you just, a star when you see one. And I wasn't able to see Jerry. From what I understand, it was quite an experience.
When you're putting different skill sets together to build artists, because clearly Glass Animals, Head and the Heart, and Harry Styles all going at it from much different directions because they're just different platforms that those artists are using to reach their fans. In a lot of cases, those are different genres. So to have those tools to reach those right audiences, that's a big, big job. And you seem to continue to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes down to it is this. I mean, we're very fortunate in knowing the audience and the particular type of fan that goes to those shows, because of all of the history. And these are acts, when you speak of the Head and the Heart and Glass Animals and, Haim, that have built their careers on the road. Leon Bridges, I mean, So when you go see all those shows, and they've played hundreds and hundreds, you know who you're playing to. You obviously want to reach everybody, but you've got to find those venues that are clearly the next correct step up based on your history that, people want to go see shows at, and a seated Radio City Music Hall might not be the best for one band, but it might be, the right step for another. And in the great words of Rick Roskin, I feel that the best thing for a band to do is go where you're appreciated and not where you're tolerated.
That's deep.
Yeah, about as deep as I get.
One might say you have ears. Your roster is incredible. Looking at acts, like there's a beautiful poster of Maggie Rogers on the wall, and like the acts that have those moments. Leon Bridges, the first time I got the avail from CAA, I went to the Twitter page and there was like 30 followers. It was like you guys were in there before anyone knew, and it was like, okay, something's going on.
They know before anyone
something.
knew. The industry obviously knew,
but the public didn't know.
The public did not know. I mean, when you talk about Maggie and Leon, you talk about larger than life personalities, and I think that's what we saw here. Certainly don't take all the credit. We have had an amazing team of people that have been behind Leon that stretch from all areas of the agency, and as with Maggie. But these are artists that find ways to connect with their fans, and it's just on such a sincere level. And I think that to have a lasting career, to stay relevant, that is one of the most important things you can do. And it's just our job to make sure that, we present it in the best way possible so they can do their job. They've overexceeded any expectations that, in my opinion, and it's been an amazing ride with both acts.
Now, you got acts that are relevant to the festival world in a big way.
Mm-hmm.
Figure out what you're going to play, what makes sense, where you're going to be on the bill, which ones you're going to do. Those conversations happen a year out now. That really affects your full tour cycle, album cycle. A lot of pieces have to be in play. You have to be looking at the board way out to know where you're going when you're getting offers for a Palooza or an ACL or Coachella or what have you. Like you're building, that's like the first or second piece that's got to come into the puzzle when you realize the album cycle is going to be happening then. Which look are we going for? That's a big process, right?
It is. I mean, for me, I'm a strong believer that festivals are great for some acts and a box to check for others. Certainly, they are taking over much of the landscape, and they're a part of our everyday lives now and affect touring cycles, like you said. And, I think it just comes down to timing and what makes sense. My philosophy as a band or an act shouldn't play a festival just to play it if we feel it's the right crowd. But Leon Jazz Fest this past year was, in my opinion, a breakout set for him. Maggie Rogers at Lollapalooza was a breakout set for her. The Head and the Heart headlined, a smaller fest in Charleston, which was such an amazing look for them. So any sort of Haim headline Pitchfork, when it's the right time and the right look, and the sort of demographic you're dealing with at the festival, you can put all those things together, and it sounds like a gigantic swell of things to think about, but it really makes sense because it takes a play out of the market. And, when you're building to that next level of people buying hard tickets just to see you, it's, sometimes important to skip the festival.
Now, with that in mind, I think about the number of pictures I see from pool parties at the hotel during Coachella in the afternoon and how many people may be on the bill that no one is seeing because it's the desert and it's 97 degrees and no one's going out until they get some pool time in to cool off.
Right.
And if you're on that bill, maybe it's not a great look if you're too early in the day.
Yeah, I mean, I think that with Coachella, it's a whole different beast. As an agent, no, we don't love the 2 o'clock 100-degree weather slots. Someone's got to play them, and someone's going to get those slots. From our standpoint, it becomes more of a battle with just the whole team. Is having Coachella on your calendar, in your press release, is that important enough to justify playing in front of no one at 1 o'clock, So it's not ideal. I wouldn't suggest it, but, we also have to factor in, the powers that be that are also involved in the artists' lives. So we all know those sweet spots at Coachella, and everyone wants to play as late as they can up against nobody. But at the end of the day, it's not going to happen. And I'm a strong believer that I don't care where my act is on the poster. If people want to see them, they're going to go. It's about as simple as that.
Now, festivals are popping up all of the time. The border to entry when it comes to festivals seems to be have a rich uncle and some land and, you can go for it. So if you get an offer for one of your acts to play a festival you've never heard of, for a promoter you've never heard of, but they're willing to send 100% up front, at what point do you go to the artist and saying, we have no idea how real this is, even though the money may be there, this may never happen?
We have to. We have strict policies, just like I'm sure some of the other agencies do, that, on these first year festivals, on these buyers that don't have, say, the relationships that we do with an AG or a Live Nation or another Planet, we have to exert extreme caution. 100% of the money up front is a must for a first year festival, especially before announce. And, that's something that, we pride ourselves here for. We have an amazing festival group that spends way too much time. Well, it's not enough time. I mean, getting the money in. But at the end of the day, it's a conversation with the manager. It's like, do you want to take this chance?
Because you're burning a headline play for a market.
Well, yeah, I mean, you are. And, but at some point, it's just how important is the money to you? Or do we just say it's not worth the headache? I don't feel like we've had many issues with that really in the past, with stuff coming down and us not having the money. But, our festival's just completely tanking and continuing to go on. But maybe that's just because I haven't many acts that have taken those chances. Let's go back and let's talk a little history.
How did you find the music industry?
So I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama, and I was sort of the kid hanging out at the record stores and, had an older brother. So he'd take me to school and just sit in the back of the car and listen to whatever he was listening to. And I think I was a junior in high school and picked up a Wilco album and Pete Yorn, and kind of everything changed. And I realized that, music was a real passion. And when I got to college, I got into college radio and was able to be lucky enough to get a job with Sony BMG as a college marketing rep. So spent most of my time doing that, finding new bands, finding new talents. A lot of the bands I played were My Morning Jacket and Kings of Leon. And, when I realized that the label wasn't for me, it was, what's that job that contains that live component? And that's how I got my job here at CAA in 2006.
2006. It's 2019 now. 13 years and one gig.
13 years, one gig, 4 offices.
You started on West End?
Yes. Started in Nashville, went to LA, then came back to Nashville, moved to New York for 10 years, and then got back here about 2.5 years ago.
You've had the ability to work in both New York and LA and here in Nashville. So opposed to just visiting, you've been in the office and a lot of people in both of those offices, especially since so many of the agents at all 3 offices and even all 4, because London, a lot of people don't leave. There's a big, huge retention rate at CAA. Agents stay in place for a very long time. So you've got relationships in those offices you've cultivated over just being in them.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and this is going to sound like a total kiss-ass comment, but I couldn't do what I do at what I consider the best agency on the planet if it wasn't for those people that I've been able to meet, work with. I wouldn't have been able to sign and be able to work with the bands that I do if it wasn't building the right teams around, those artists and putting a room together of people that are going to show the bands why we think what we do is the best work. And very, very, very happy that I have been able to and still try to spend so much time in all of the offices. And I feel that as great as, Nashville is becoming, to have a counterpart in LA, someone talking about it, to have a team member out there running the names up the building, take Haim, for example. Mitch Rose and I work on Haim, and just to have him in LA where they're based, myself here, makes for it's obvious. It's just great teamwork. And, we're constantly able to take care of any needs that are there and so forth.
The team thing seems like it's evolving in the industry as not such a new thing, but it's really, most of the big agencies have adopted this, several agents on a team, especially spread out over multiple offices.
Right.
So there are people pollinating things and critical mass happening quicker.
It's a must. I mean, anybody that thinks they know everything is an idiot. Again, I mean, to be able to call people that have been doing this for twice as long as I have and booked 70 arena tours in the last 5 years is an amazing asset. It's unbelievable. For me to not utilize that aspect of this company would be just completely wrong. And I feel that at this company, your career, you're better set by getting everyone involved. It's only the best for the artist if you have everyone talking about them. and they're in everyone's lives, and they touch someone in any way. And I wouldn't have it any other way. I wouldn't mind if anyone called any of the managers that I worked with, and if they had an idea, because I want the managers and the bands to feel like everyone here is thinking about them, because we are.
That's a new school way of thinking of things for sure. Not being the gatekeeper on everything. That's an evolution of the business, clearly.
Well, I mean, listen, I think what's most important is that the line of communication is open. I don't ever want to feel like I don't know anything that's going on if we have a team. And I would say that, I'm sure there are other agencies and acts where that kind of stuff goes on, but I feel like when everyone's a part of the team and you've got exciting acts, everyone feels that sort of energy that is there with a lot of these acts that are breaking. It's an easy thing to do, and that line of communication stays open.
Now, CAA, arguably one of the top 3 agencies in the world at any given moment, maybe 1, 2, 3, depending on how the cycle of tour grosses are changing as far as music goes, and certainly on all the different platforms, players on media on every level. But you had talked about a second ago being the younger guy and being out there, like, meeting people and doing it. And an agency like CAA, some people might think acts just come to them because they're CAA, there's critical mass. But the agency clearly knew when they had an opening for a younger guy to go out there and develop those relationships. They knew that they had to continue to develop those relationships, and they have to have young people doing that.
Right, 100%.
It's not a gimme.
It's not a gimme. I mean, and I think that, I'm sure there are acts and managers that love CAA would prefer having their acts here. But what I found is that the way that the competition is now is that when you have a manager with a hot act, they've got relationships at every agency. And it's only going to do, the manager's job, in my opinion, is to do what's right by their act. And it's only going to do the act justice if they see everyone's pitch. Why? I mean, that would be, in my opinion, being a bad manager if you don't get a look at what everyone's going, everyone has going on. I mean, and with Leon, there were 8 agencies going after him. I think my hair, as you can see, is a little bit grayer because of that 3-month stint, but it's wise. You'd be doing an injustice to not hear everyone out, in my opinion. So to answer your question, I mean, I think that, sure, are there acts that want to be at CAA and come to CAA? I'm sure. But oftentimes when there is an act that's new, hot, up and coming, they're going to get those meetings. They're going to get in every room. And I think it's the manager just doing the right thing for their client. You've been here a very long time. I assume most of your mentors are CAA? Yes. Who are they? Who am I going to get in trouble for not mentioning? Mitch Rose and Rick Roskin, Daryl Eaton and Brian Manning, Marlene Tucci are just people that really noticed that music was my passion, that I was seemingly smart in some ways, and I feel like gave me the opportunity to just go and do my thing, which ultimately gave me the confidence to, try and build relationships, bring clients in. All of them are on teams. Marlene and I do Two-Door and Maggie together. Rick and I do Leon together. Mitch and I do Harry and Haim together. So Daryl and I do Glass Animals and Jack Garrett together. So you're talking about the 4 heads of, the music department. We all work together. It's been very important for the last 10 years. It's sort of been their willingness to say, all right, maybe he might be good, but we'll see how that all pans out. I don't know. Musically, I've seen most of your acts live, and I gotta say, live is where they shine. They all have great albums, and they're super well produced, shiny albums. There's no question. But that's the one thing all of your acts seem to have in common is their live shows are all on fucking point. Is that where it starts for you? I think so. I mean, I think that for whatever reason, I found that you can't just sit back and rely on radio. You can't just assume that you're going to be the most streamed artist, because we all know how, what's hot now and what's not. So you've sort of got to build that groundswell and that base, on the road. And you look at Glass Animals, you look at The Head and the Heart, you look at what Leon's done, what Maggie's been able to do. And, for the most part, it's just that constant touring, being present in the market, maybe hitting some of those markets that are secondary, just getting around, finding those right plays that, make it really easy to come back and be successful. So, yeah, it's live first, I think, in a lot of ways. And then if that perfect storm of radio and sinks and whatever comes, it's off to the races, and that's fantastic. But I'm of the mindset that we've just got to do our job here and assume that none of that's going to happen.
You just mentioned secondaries, which I think is a fascinating question these days, because normally if secondaries get played when you've got to get between Denver and Vegas, you got to play Salt Lake. You got to get the extra play in. But in a lot of cases now, acts are choosing to play secondaries instead of going back through the same A an extra time. They'll go and hit the secondary intentionally and go do a full secondary market tour. Is that something that you've dabbled with and experimented with?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like great example is Leon. I mean, I think that, once you play Boston and Philly and New York and DC all those times, it's maybe time to hit the Portland, Maines and the Baltimores. And, instead of Atlanta, maybe you go to Birmingham, where you can still draw from those majors. And, they could certainly advertise there. But I feel that, not just because I'm from Birmingham, there's an amazing music scene there. And there's people that want to see music. Portland, Maine, Maggie just did 11,000 tickets there. So there is clearly a market, not everything, but the right things. And you never really know until you kind of get out there and test the waters. And I feel that, when you're a promoter in some of those secondary markets, it's not as easy. And you got a lot more on the line. And, so you're going to get a lot of effort out of them. And we have. And a good key to success is when you can really build an artist to go and do a 40 to 50 date tour in the United States. I mean, that's essentially 40 or 50 different countries when you think about it.
That's an insane thought. You just mentioned the secondary promoters that are going into those markets working harder and doing a better job sometimes because they have to. Who do you feel are some of the rising star promoters that are doing the best job for you?
Let's see. I mean, some of the secondary promoters that let's just take this year, for example, rather than go back 10, because this is going to get boring. Sam Summers, for instance. Iowa had a festival called Hinterland this year. Casey Musgraves, Brandy Carlisle, Maggie Rogers, absolutely phenomenal. Maggie said it was one of her favorite festivals she's ever played.
Well, that's high praise.
It's unbelievable. So you look at Sam and you go, you pretty much built a Newport Folk and Alex Carruthers, Lauren Wayne, what they're doing in the Northeast with the Burlingtons and Portland, Maines of the world. And those are markets that a lot of people would skip. But when you really think about it, how beautiful it is up there and the outdoor venues they have. People, even an hour and a half away, 2 hours away, love to go and sit by the water and watch shows. Dan Smalls, in Cooperstown. We've had Leon and Glass Animals play there at the brewery in Ommegang. So, I mean, it's just these promoters that just have these amazing venues in sort of these, I guess you'd call them small destination cities that have done well. But, from Iowa to Burlington to Cooperstown, you can find great plays for your bands.
So do you have any advice for some of the younger people coming up in the industry?
My advice would be this, as lucky and fortunate as I am to be able to work with the amazing artists that I do, I would say that to me, the mindset that should be that any artist that sells tickets is a cool artist. Any artist that finds success and works hard and wants it is someone to get behind and help out. And, often people want to go straight to what they love musically, and I get in the car and I listen to Wilco and the Grateful Dead. I don't book Wilco and the Grateful Dead, but to me, when you jump in, I feel like there's just this urge to get right to what's at the top of the New Music Friday playlist and want to be in on everything that's hot and hip and cool. And I've seen some of the most amazing agents, younger folks here at this company, just get involved with artists that they might not be familiar with, but that sell tickets and do amazing business. And it's elevated their careers immensely. And, and then you get to a point where that changes. And, that's what I found for myself. And I think that another thing, and this is the most important, is it takes so much time. It's easy to get very frustrated in this business, and it's extremely stressful. But there's always tomorrow, and there's always another show. It takes time, and that's what I tell people. When you think about how many states that I've lived in and how many years, it's really something that I've thought about a lot, and that I tell people a lot, is that just to hang in there. And, when you're at a company like CAA, good things come.
Man, I can't thank you enough for taking the time and doing this today.
Thanks for having me.
Bobby Cory, right here on Promoter 101. it just keeps getting better.
Here's Promoter 101's Dan Steinberg.
We're thrilled to announce that we've teamed up with the Recording Academy's Music Care Foundation to do a little good. And you, our listeners, can help by going to promoter101.net and clicking on the merch tab at the top of the browser. And you can pick up a stylish, limited edition, brand new Promoter 101 Call Your Mother t-shirt or hoodie. 100% of the proceeds donated will go to Music Cares, and at the same time, you'll score some brand new awesome swag. We offer many colors, styles, sizes. It's for a good cause. It's our first ever merch. We're very, very proud of it, and we're hoping that you will help us support Music Cares.
Your donation supports Music Cares and their mission to provide a safety net of critical assistance for music people in their time of need. And for the first $10,000 we raise, Prism will match donations dollar for dollar. Be the heart and soul of the music community by donating to Music Cares.
The quote of the week comes to us from Drew Barrymore. Life is very interesting. In the end, some of your greatest pains become your greatest strengths. I have no idea what she meant by that, but it's Drew Barrymore, and I just kind of love her.
That's a very Hemingway-esque interpretation of life. You know, you get people are broken, and they're strongest of the broken parts, something like that.
I don't know. I was kind of thinking it was like E.T. days, Drew Barrymore.
Well, that would be really, really ahead of her time to be thinking like that for 6-year-old Drew Barrymore.
She was said to be like hanging out with much older crowds back in those days.
That's true.
Who knows? Anyway, quote of the week, Drew Barrymore, right here, Promoter 101.
I'm Nick Storch from Arts Group International, and I'm on Promoter 101.
We're concluding our broadcast day, but if you want to write to us, you can do that by emailing us at steiny@promoter101.net. If you miss us or you just want to catch up.
I just want to catch up, Dan. I just want to catch up.
Do you want to be Big Spoon or Little Spoon?
A Little Spoon, always, Dan. You know, come on. Thank you so much for tuning into the podcast, and thank you to our amazing guests today from CAA Nashville, Bobby, Cory, and from the Tacoma Dome, Tom Alexander. Thank you both for coming on the podcast, giving our wonderful listeners a little bit of your time today. We're going to be back this Thursday, 5 o'clock Pacific, 8 o'clock Eastern, and midnight Greenwich Mean Time. I think that's over in London, Dan.
That is where they keep the London.
We're in the meantime.
Join us next week on episode 183 when we feature our very own Luke Pierce of Works Entertainment. That's right. You guys asked for it. You wanted it. And finally, we wore him down and he gave up. Luke is going to be here with a full interview. We're going to get in there. We're going to pick through that mind of his and figure out just what the hell makes you tick.
Wow. Well, I assume that I'm very good in it, so we'll see how it goes. Until that interview, we are wishing you sold out shows for the week ahead.
Cheers! Call your mother!
This is Andy Levitt with Live Nation Comedy. You're listening to Promoter 101.